So today is February 1st. This is the Kubebuilder community meeting. Please don't say nothing that you don't want to be in the internet for the posterity. And we have two items in the agenda. The first one is Shuba that you present their solution. They would like to create a plugin to integrate with a Kubebuilder. Go for it.
Okay, so hey guys, my name is Shivam, and we are presenting a solution that we created during our LFX term in LFX fall November 2023. So what we really tried is to provide a solution so that we could test our operators. We could provide an end-to-end testing to our operators. So what was the motivation behind this and what the problem we were facing? So before that, there lots of tests we could write, such as like unit testing and integration testing, but there is no the E2E testing is like much more reliable, right? So there was a tool that we were using before it. It was Cuttle, but there was few problems with the cutter. Like it didn't really provide us assertion trees, and the community of the cutter was not really responding. So the whole motivation behind it was it to let's just revive the idea for the E2E testing. Okay, so what we really feel that is uh, we want to start providing E2 solutions, and we have created and produced some stable releases, and we are now looking to provide this idea at a larger scale. So we are introducing it right now at the Kubebuilder community meeting. So I think Charles has also joined the meeting. He was with me and he was my mentor during the whole session. So let's look at what chainsaw can really provide you. So by the definition, the chainsaw is just end-to-end test tool for the Kubernetes cluster. It's like not meant to install the Kubernetes operator, but it's meant to test the resources that you have created, that they have created the as you expected or not, and like just assert and try to perform different operations like create, delete, like some kind of scripting and commands over the Kubernetes cluster, right? So like what we made it, we have written a few docs that you must check it out. And the installation of chainsaw is like pretty much simple. Like we have right now we have uh, added to homebrew and tried some package management, and we could also source install it, and we could simply have in our GitHub actions, which is like much more cooler, I think, because most of the time we would be using the chainsaw in CI, right? So we could simply use the GitHub action that we have provided over here. So let's just uh, quickly jump onto the chainsaw and let's see how we could write a few tests. So as I mentioned, like chainsaw is a like test tool. So it must provide us a solution to write a test. So we have few APIs that we share. Like the first one is like a test API, the kind test, and it's more like the Kubernetes a declarative way, like just the YAML approach, and we could simply declare our spec field over here. And the APIs that we provide over here is like a chainsaw. In chainsaw is like the first is like a configuration, and another one is like the test API. So the configuration is simply to set the predefined configuration for the chainsaw, and the test API is for just providing a test. We follow the syntax, which is the try, catch, and finally, in which the first we just try to the steps that you have mentioned, and then if there is some error, we try to catch it, and there is some finally that would execute no matter what if it fails or pass. Okay, so let's quickly jump to writing some test, I think. Let's first create a cluster. Okay. Okay. So it would be created. So let's look at how basic a test could look like. So we have provided a few examples over here in our test data and E2 examples. So the most basic example could be test whether the config map like that, a simple config map is created or not. So the syntax for the test API could be like, first we would try to apply the config map, and this config map would be like applied to Kubernetes cluster, and then we try to assert this config map. So the config assert would be like present over here, and we just assert this resource in the Kubernetes cluster. So if the config map is like present over there, then this should pass, and if it not, then this particular test should fail. So let's write this example. Okay. So the way could be like, we could simply write chainsaw test, and we could simply pass this directory. I think it's basic. Okay. So we can see like how this test is really being performed. So this is the basic configuration that we have set. Since I have not provided the configuration, the default configuration would be used. Uh, and then we try to perform the basic test. We first try to apply this resource. The resource was not there, and then the resource was created, which is, and then after like creating the resource, we simply like try to assert the resource, and after the simply asserting the resource, the cleanup would be happen the cleanup would be there. So this resource will be cleaned. So since this test is just approved, so it passed, and we got a simple test summary, which is we passed the test. And this is how a basic a simple chainsaw test could look like. So what comes after this is we provide a lot more example, a lot more depth like beside this. So it could be like the real power for the chainsaw is we works on something which is called assertion tree, which is like powered by the library which is called James Path. And so what we kind of do over there is we support the James Path expressions. So what the James Path expressions is, uh, the James Path expression is nothing like, uh, it's kind of a syntax that we can just query over the JSON resources, and in much more flexible way, like we can do. So if we look like our array assertion, so like the resource like we could create over his like a container. There are a list of containers, like 3 containers, like container 1, 2, 3. And if you want to test something like the name of the environment variable for like the particular container, the name of environment variable could be like the value 1. So we could test these kind of complex resources also, like for example, like we have provide like assertion example over here. So what it do is it just iterate over the container, and if it catches the image 1, and then it try to read the environment variables from over here. So these kind of like complex expressions is also provided by the chainsaw. So besides like the assertion, so we have like more test steps, I mean, we could perform more operations just beside the assert and apply. We could have create, command, delete, error, script, and sleep as well. uh, we also support the one thing which is called a non-resource expression, which we have added, I think, in December, I think, in which there's no need for a particular there's no need that the resource should look like the Kubernetes resource, but we could provide the functions. The example for that could be like, I think something like this. Okay, so this is something like the non-resource expression could look like. So if we like if you want to like test if the size of the nodes, which could be like variable for the basics, like for like there was a query like when the daemon for a resource which is called a daemon set, it could scale to like 1 to 10 and something like that, and we want to just where the variable could be like this particular node which could be a variable, so we can't really like rely on a fixed resource on a fixed value. So we provided a Kubernetes function which we could just simply list the resource, and we could just try to project this over there. So okay.
Yeah, I think the whole point is that it's not operating on a single object. It's just an assertion regarding the state of the cluster. And in this particular example, it just asserts that we have the expected number of nodes.
Right. So in a nutshell, like chainsaw is like a much more powerful tool for a much more powerful and much more easier approach to assert compare your Kubernetes resource, which is like, and it is like made for Kubernetes like operator, like what. Okay. So if you like, while the basic function of the operator is like it just apply a resource, and it just try to manage the state of the resource. And if the operator simply apply a resource, and we want to make sure that the particular spec field the particular spec field that we created has been created or not. Like if let's say if we apply a deployment and we want to check if the replicas are not going above 5, so we could simply provide a chainsaw test over there, and we could make sure that we can provide the chainsaw test in our CI, and we could make sure this particular test is like true or false. If we want to test the false conditions also, we could also do that. So okay.
Very nice. Did you finish your presentation, or would you like to demonstrate anything else for us?
I think I'm mostly done on the part. I'm mostly done.
Yeah. Okay. I would like to know if someone would you like to raise a question or make a comment.
Yeah, so I think that this is pretty cool. If I understand correctly, this builds on top of the Cuddle tool, or like what's a fork of the Cuddle tool. Do you? I never used Cuddle or anything. I've only ever done like Go ETE tests and stuff in like operators that I've worked on. How do you guys envision this working for people who have like, they're testing an operator for ETE tests? Is there like easy ways to say, like, when you create this resource, make sure that, all these, make sure all my operands have been created, and also like make sure that my status has these certain conditions and things like that?
Yeah, that's definitely the use case for Chainsaw. So you can just apply a resource and then assert that the corresponding resource are present and have the expected state and status. So you don't necessarily need to look up those resources by name. You can do it by owner reference. You can do that by labels and things like this. So this is exactly the kind of use case that Chainsaw should address.
Cool.
Right.
And do you guys see? I guess like I can see like what the advantages could be. I'm curious from hearing from you guys what you think what you guys view as the perceived benefits over doing something in like vanilla Go ETE tests on
Well,
in like that kind of situation.
you mean in Golang?
Yeah, so like say like I wanted to write an ETE test to make sure that like when I create this resource, all these things are also created, that the resource I created has certain statuses and stuff like that. Like I've written a bunch of Go ETE tests to do that. What's the benefit of using Chainsaw over writing it in Golang?
I think the first benefit, like writing tests through Chainsaw, is like much more simpler than writing tests in Golang. And the another thing is we could it's pretty hard, like if you like provide a like assertion trees, like for if you take the example of assertion trees where you can just simply provide expressions like a complex expression like these. So writing these in Go, maybe like it would require much more time, and it's like really complex, and for this thing I think Chainsaw is just meant for.
Yeah, and I think in our case, it's like Chainsaw has its own language. It's just declarative. So it's quite easy actually to create an end-to-end test and see it run in action. You can inline commands and things like this. So it's really simple. In our case, we are working on Kv4, the policy management tool. And we often have users that create issues and things like this. And turning an issue into an end-to-end test becomes a matter of mostly copy-pasting a couple of files. And then we can push that in the repository, in the Git repository, and those tests are executed automatically. So it doesn't, we can almost translate an issue into a test without any coding or anything special. So today, I think we are around 400 or 500 end-to-end tests, and having the same coverage writing tests in Golang would have been, I think, almost impossible.
Yeah, right.
So
I
that's probably one of the main benefits we can observe from using such a solution that's no code based. So yeah, all issues almost all issues, we have manifests to reproduce the issue, and once we have those manifests, it's like we have an end-to-end test.
Yep, that makes sense. I have another question, but let other folks go first.
I think the next one is Varsha, but I don't know. Yeah. You want to make your other question first, Bruce, and then go to the others, or can we let Varsha speak and you'll come back after?
Yeah, I can come back after everyone's done in case somebody asks it.
I think it's Varsha, Jay, and after Eric. So go for it, Varsha.
Yeah, thanks, Kamala. And it was a really nice demo. Thanks, Shubham and Charles, for showing it up here. I'm just curious if this chainsaw installation comes as a part of Kv4, and have you had any assessments or folks who are building just operators, like not using policy management tools like Kv4, ask for this kind of E2E testing? Like, I'm just trying to understand if folks have started adopting it and what has been the reaction and the use case of this.
So your first question was like the theme of the chainsaw is like different from the Kv4, and I mean like the Charles works both at the Kv4 at chainsaw, and I works only at chainsaw. And and asking the adoption, like we are like doing pretty good. and the Caverno has already adopted since it was the part, and we have create a adoption list over here. Right now, I think Captain has also like put the test in the chainsaw, and let me check the adoption list of the chainsaw. Over here, I think we have put maybe the also the RBAC manager tool that we pushed some test over there. So pretty much we are getting some good response for this tool, and since it's like a we the stable release was in December, I think, and after that we have not done any like session or much more like that, so it's like pretty much into the since development stage also, and so we are like in adoption stage right now.
Correct. Thanks. Just like a super quick question. Have you started working on the Kubebuilder plugin to have this integrated? And it's okay if you have not. I'm just curious to get the feedback on what your experience has been in terms of integrating it with Kubebuilder as an external plugin.
Okay, so right now, like I was not able to like integrate. I mean, I didn't started integrating right now, but like I have plans. Like I think in this week and in coming like few times, like I would integrate it with Kubebuilder.
Thanks. No worries. Yep. That's it for me. Thanks,
Uh,
Shubham.
Actually, we started with Qtl, and so we created Chainsaw because we found a few limitations in Qtl, and Kv4 is nothing more than an operator or a controller. But of course, it does a lot of admission, validation, admission requests, and things like this. So we definitely needed a way to test that um, submitting a request is rejected for good reasons. And in fact, if the request is not rejected, it is an error. So that's one of the things that you can do with Qtl. Qtl expects every request to succeed, but if you are creating an operator that has a validating webhook, you should test for cases where the actual resource is rejected. And you should test that in a declarative way. So that's one of the advantages of Qtl, I think, of Chainsaw.
Okay. Uh, I have a few follow-up, but then I'll let others go ahead and ask at the end of it.
Okay, go ahead. Thanks.
Thank you. I think now is Jay, right? After Eric.
Uh, so, as someone who is not the biggest fan of ENV test, I can certainly relate to the desire for something that's not that. One of the biggest things that I make sure our tests include are negative tests or negative assertions, which with Gomega is basically kind of a consistently with a timeout that we know is long enough. So my question is how do you do like negative tests here that something won't happen?
We provide operation which is called error over here. So it is used to do negative test. So
Error.
if okay, what?
Okay. So it watches for something to not exist, basically.
Okay, so if you like provide something a file, so something like deployment error file, and it should contain an error. If it doesn't contain an error, if it's just passed, so it would like simply throw an error and test would fail. And it's like opposite to the assert, right? So assert make sure like the statement should be true, and it the error make sure that the statement that we pass over there should be false.
Okay, cool.
I think you can make your question now, Eric.
Yes, I would just like to comment on this. I'm working on a couple of operators, at least 4, and we currently use Cuttle in all of them. And it's been proven to be very, very useful to have these kind of tests in our operators, because it's very easy when a user reports a problem or something, we can just go into the cluster and fetch the resource in YAML and just very easily create a test for it, modify the manifest so it looks how it should be, and then we have a test for the reported error. The problem with Cuttle is once you reach the limits of the tool, it becomes very complex. So you need to bail out to something like script or commands, which doesn't look good and make them not being declarative tests. So I've been talking a lot with Charles about this tool, and we have both been involved in Cuttle before Changelog was established. So I'm really looking forward trying to migrate to Chainsaw, and since it's based on Cuttle, which we are using a lot currently.
So thanks, Eric. We are also looking forward to integrate with it, and we have provide a few solutions to migrate the Cuttle scripts to Chainsaw. So you can also check that out, I think.
Yes. I will also keep in touch with Charles around this. I've just been busy with a lot of operational stuff, but I'm really see the potential of this tool coming from Cuttle, where the community is not active anymore. There have been some movement lately, so we'll see where this ends up.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I have a question as well, just to see if I understood. If I'd like to make a test for one workflow, I go there, I create a GitHub action, right? Like we create for any other test. And then I create the files to check the workflow. So I will define with the syntax what I expected in the cluster after some commands be applied, right? So if I have many workflows, I can create many GitHub actions. Is that? Did I miss something?
I didn't really catch up. Can you repeat your question?
So I understood that to use the tool, I go there and I create a GitHub action with the syntax. So if that GitHub action, I will put a syntax like kubectl apply custom resource A. Then I will put what I expected to have in the cluster when I apply that custom resource, right? One workflow, one controller. But if I want to have other workflows, other tests, then I can create a GitHub action for each workflow. Is that the way that you are using that? Many GitHub actions?
No, I think you can provide a top level directory, something like this. If you have like E2 directory, and you could just pass this directory, and it would just read all the directories and subdirectories, and you just need to mention a flag which is which is test directory, and it would simply read all the tests, and it will just search for a file which could be like chainsaw test. The default one is chainsaw test. You could also change it, and the test will be happen. You could use, you can simply do that. Okay.
Okay, really thank you.
You don't need to provide uh like like uh every dedicated GitHub action for this. A single GitHub action could do.
And the other question is like, for example, in Kubebuilder, two solutions that usually is common to use with the default layout is Search Manager and the Prometheus. Is possible to handle dependence? Like, if, for example, I want to test, could be a Helm chart, right? I want to test my Helm chart, and for my Helm chart to works, I need to install Search Manager before. But my Helm chart doesn't manage Search Manager.
I didn't really get your question.
Like I have an operator, right?
Right.
You manage something. Can be main cache, like the example that we have in the tutorial.
Okay.
But for my operator to works well, I need to have search manager installed on the cluster. Is a dependence of my solution. But my solution doesn't install search manager. Who is responsible to manage search manager is the operator that manages search manager. So it's possible I define like before run my tests, I want A and B and C as a dependence. How you do that to work with dependence?
Isn't that part of the installation of the operator? I mean, we have a simple make file which installs Cert Manager first using Helm, and then just installing the operator. And then you start the tests after the operator is installed.
Right. The chainsaw is not like meant to install the operator. It is like just to meant to like test the actions that operator do.
No, yes, but because you put the asserts, right? That are the tests. So yeah,
Okay, so you're asking like would it create the resource or not?
because I saw kubectl apply, right? So I understand that in T syntax, I will put the commands to do the stuff. So how I do my test? Like, do you have an example to show like how you do your test? How you apply the solution? How you apply search manager, for example? Then the solution, then run the test.
I think you can simply use this, I think, operation, apply operation, to apply any resource file, and then you can simply put the asserts over there, and simply if you want to test the negative, so you can put the error. Also, we could, if you want to make sure that it just create, then you can simply use to the create operation, I think.
So then I would need to have the search manager manifest inside of my project, or I can use it from the internet, for example, apply the
You
whole
can
bundle.
also use from the internet. I think it should be the at least the raw resource.
Sure.
We could provide a URL. We have already done that, so
Okay.
we can also do that.
Okay, really thank you for answering my silly questions. Anybody, would you like to make any other question?
Yeah. So my last question I had was, and maybe Eric, since you have been using Cuddle for a little while, you could also help me understand this. What's the like having if you've written a test in Go and you write a similar test with Chainsaw or Cuddle, what's the like runtime difference typically look like?
I really haven't written the same kind of tests in Go and Cuddle. I mean, Cuddle has parallelity, so you will be able to run some of the tests in parallel. So if you take away the installation of the operator in your actual cluster, it performs pretty well. It's not an issue at all. What takes time is to install all the prerequisites and the operator itself.
Right.
If that was your question.
So Cuddle and like Chainsaw typically don't have, what feels like significantly long run times once everything's set up.
No, not at all. Not at all. The tests run very fast. I think Cuddle has a parallelity of 8 by default. So it runs very fast through a lot of scenarios. I don't know if you, Shubha, has the same experience. It's fast.
Yeah, I think it's same with Chainsaw also. Like the default way is to just run that all the tests in parallel, and it also depends on the Go max procs. I think the maximum processes that could be run in parallel. So it also like something which depends on your test infra also, not completely on Chainsaw. So I think.
Yeah, I mean, some of that makes sense. Have you ever run into a case where the parallelism has caused a problem? Like, does Chainsaw have some form of like, I'm creating this resource, so to make sure that it's unique on the cluster,
You
it
can
like appends some kind of information to it?
you can change the parallelism in Chainsaw. You can just provide a fixed number, like I think I could show you some configuration regarding this. So we have, I think, just a second. So I think something like this, you could simply change the maximum number of process. I think if you just make it one, so one particular test would run at a time, not more than that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. But so avoiding like cleanup steps when you do things in parallel, especially with Kubernetes, right? Like resources have to have like unique names in a namespace, right? So like if my test creates a resource with the same namespace and name
Okay,
for
so the
multiple
names,
test cases,
it depends. If you not have specified your namespace, so the namespace would be like, there will be a available namespace that will be provided by Chainsaw. So if you, so that then it won't be a problem. Like it could because you can have like a common name if you don't specify a specific namespace.
It's the same with Cuttle. I mean, any scenario in Cuttle will run in its own namespace, which is a Cuttle test appended with something from a list which make them not collide, at least not likely to collide.
Gotcha.
If you,
Yeah, like I said, I've never used Cuddle before, so I wasn't aware of like
Yeah.
unique namespaces like that. But what about for like cluster scoped resources, like where there's no namespace?
Well, you have to write your test accordingly, of course, because you only have one cluster. So we from my experience, we didn't have any problems with this, but we mainly have namespace scoped operators. They are
Yeah, it was
watching the whole cluster, but the resources they care for are namespaced.
right.
we have a lot of cross namespace tests as well. I was curious about that. Like we have to make a lot of assertions that we're not going to do things in other namespaces, or we are.
Okay, so like if you are like doing cross namespace test, then I think you have to specify your namespace beforehand, like so then there won't be any problem. But if you are just, you can't rely on an ephemeral namespace then, because uh, a particular resource, like a resource in a particular directory in a particular test, then it would be like in the same namespace. So then you have to rely on like you have to make namespace beforehand, and then you can do that, I think.
I'm curious to what kind of tests you're looking for across namespaces. Do you have an example?
Yeah, so one of our operators is basically our internal customers come to us and say, hey, we want XYZ thing deployed, right? And then they also will sometimes link a lot that will tell us stuff they want us to link to in the same cluster. So our operator has to go find that thing in somewhere in the cluster and pull it back, right? That's completely across namespaces because our customers can set up their namespace in any way they want. We're even looking at cross-cluster support through a variety of things right now.
If you have some, if you can just put the labels, then I think it would be much simpler. Like searching every resource, I think it won't make any sense. Like if you put any particular label, then I think it could work cross namespace also.
Like label-wise,
Like what?
but you talk about the labels.
Okay,
We don't
I mean,
control.
yeah. So you can simply put labels on your, like while creating a resource, you can put the labels, and then I think when you just try to assert the resource, then we could simply like do that. Okay, how?
Let's see if I understood. You are saying like I can filter by namespace and saying I expected this resource with this data in this namespace, or I can say I expected resources with the label, then you're checking the whole cluster. It's not any specific namespace. Is that?
I didn't like. Can you repeat again?
If you put a resource and define a namespace, then the
Right.
solution you're checking that specific namespace. However, if you define a label, then you're checking the whole cluster, not by
Yeah.
the label, not you using the namespace. Then it would be like a trick,
Yeah.
a workaround
Right.
to
If
do
you
that.
yeah, if we put labels, then we would like we would search on the basis of label. Then we can't simply put the namespace. We would get a validation error. In assert, we can't put both the namespace as well as selectors. So there could be any one thing like either selectors. The selectors, I think, it won't depend on any namespace. They would simply search all the namespaces. And if you put namespace a particular namespace in a assert resource, then it needs to be present in that particular namespace.
Varsha make a question as well, raise a question in the channel. Does Chainsaw support multi-cluster too?
Like cluster 2, well, like you're asking for multi-cluster support.
Yes.
Yeah, this support is like we are working on it right now, but it's not been added.
Okay.
So any other question, guys?
I'm a little bit curious about like the runtime that Chainsaw if ever support. Like currently from the documentation, I saw like it's mostly recommended using the client cluster to go with testing, right? I'm just curious in like if ever other like Kubernetes runtime that is available for running Chainsaw. So for example, like the 6 testing is released like the Quark as another like very low level setup for the Kubernetes mock testing. That ever I'm curious about if it's possible to run like Chainsaw in that environment. And also if going with testing on different cloud vendors, so for example, like AKS, EKS, or like the GKE, like have you ever going with testing or like support going with like clusters on those cloud vendors? Just curious about that part.
Like right now, like we have not like dependent on any other vendor. I think we are we have not thought really about that.
I can comment a bit on that. We run our tests in all our clusters as a selective list of the scenarios that we run in even in production as smoke tests. So they're usually neutral to the cluster. So we use K3s on feature branches since it's simple to spin up, and our real clusters are OpenShift. It works nicely.
Right. So it doesn't depend like if your cluster is like EKS or that we are like neutral over there.
No, I wouldn't think it matters at all. You just need to have some kind of kubectl context initialized towards your clusters. It's using purely the API.
Okay, thanks for answering my questions.
I think it was very cool. We are very close to the end of the meeting. Really thank you for presenting this nice tool, and I think everybody enjoy and for answer all questions as well. That was amazing. We have more one item in the agenda but that will be very fast. I think we can sync offline as well. It's more about we have many code in Kubebuilder that is deprecated and that is started to be hard to keep maintained. So we have Go-v2, Go-v3, the declarative v1, and the component config, which are solutions that we cannot ensure that it works or doesn't work anymore in the latest version of Kubernetes in the I don't know. We have in the agenda the details as well about the ideas, and if one of the things that you'd like to raise is if someone has any objections or would you like that we put in a patch release or do a release with V3, before remove the components that are deprecated for any reason, needs something, please let us know, because then we can try to figure out and see how we can accommodate. And that, I don't know, someone would like to speak about that, to say something? No, it's a silence. So I think
Um,
we go.
Yeah, I'm like relative to this, like I'm also a little bit curious if ever like necessary that we going to compare like the latest APIs provided by Cloud Runtime as what have been scaffolded in our current like Go v4 plugins, because I saw like in the recent releases from the Cloud Runtime, they have been changed for like a number of APIs and interfaces, and some of them it looks like what being scaffolded is kind of like deprecated, though I'm not quite sure if it's really usable or not. So I guess maybe when we're going with like drop over like the deprecated code from our side, I'm also curious if ever we have some plannings to compare with the scaffolding we have and with the SDKs or the APIs provided from the Cloud Runtime to see if ever possible or necessary that we want to do some refresh of our scaffolding.
Sure, let's see if I can answer that. When we bump controller runtime and it has deprecations there, we ideally should address all deprecations in the latest release. So in our case, it's Go v4, right? Because we have only Go v4 layout. The rest of the thing is deprecated, so we should no longer do anything there. If you will have like a Go v5 alpha, we also should be working Go v4 alpha. Unfortunately, they sometimes has breaking chains, and we need to address in this scaffold as well. But not to address is breaking chains, not necessarily is a breaking change for Kubebuilder itself, because the person that is scaffold the project with the same layout, but with one version before of the tool, can upgrade and still using and don't be affected by, right? Don't change anything. But if you create a new project sometimes, then you have a new scaffold with it is depends where it is, right? The deprecation. But the Kubebuilder v4 would be required because we need to remove the code for Go v2, Go v3, and remove the stuff, right? So if you have Go v2 today, you can use the tool, not really, right? Because the tool doesn't work anymore. Go v2 is impossible to keep the solution maintained, but theoretically you could use, right? But when we do Kubebuilder v4, if you have a project that is still in Go v2 layout, that will be unrecognized, the tool will be unable to do anything because it doesn't have the code anymore inside.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
I don't know if I could clarify.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Camilla.
Yeah, because it's so many plugins, it's so hard, right? Deprecated what? What is changing? Why before? Yeah, I know it's complex. So many versions for so many things.
Yeah, but I
I'm
guess
down
like
for the.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I was just saying I'm down for the deprecations. All the different plugin versions have, certainly caused us some level of confusion in the past. Some clarification of it would be nice.
Yes, that I think is one of our motivations, right? Because you want to clean up. Because it now has so many plugins that nobody can use actually, right? Because you only kept it for backward compatibility. So, but it's not useful because yeah, it's too old. Doesn't work with the new stuff. A lot of things doesn't work with the Kubernetes 1.26, for example. Go v3
Rapidly,
doesn't work.
it's
Yeah.
rapidly moving and rapidly deprecating is the entire ecosystem. People ought to be used to it by now.
Yeah, try to simplify, right? You have your only one plugin for don't make it is confusing, right? Otherwise, it's too much thing, right? To think about, to understand. Really thank you, Jay. Really thank you, folks. Really thank you for the sign as well. I think we can call a day. That was amazing. Really thank you for everybody to attend and engage. It was a very nice and productive meeting.
Thank you, Camila.
Thanks, y'all.